Okay. Let me just fix this.
Simmons.
Your head is almost cut off.
Oh, you can be over here. I'm sorry, I'm behind a computer today. It's pretty awful.
Alright, you're good.
Sometimes I think that the people doing the associations for these runes are super lazy and they just pick one thing that they like and don't care. Hi! Are we on?
Yep.
Oh, hi guys! Alright, so today we're doing... Gebo!
Debo?
Yeah, I was pronouncing it wrong earlier. Because I'm awful.
Okay.
Yep. Why? I'm sorry, I couldn't find a printer today, so I'm going to be, instead of ruffling papers, I'm going to be being very confused by technology. You'd think that I'd be better at it, seeing as I'm the one usually behind the technology, but no.
Sometimes life just happens.
Sometimes life does just happen. And today, life is happening with Gebo. Now, for those of you who don't know what Gebo looks like, Gebo is the rune that looks exactly like an X, which seems like it would be a little counterintuitive, but, you know, it just happens. We'll talk about the shape in a little bit when we get to the section that it refers to, but many people think of the G rune as the one that represents Fehu because of the Lord of the Rings. Because in Lord of the Rings, what Tolkien did is he messed up all the different runes and just kind of switched places with them. So a lot of people, when they think of the G rune, they think of Fehu. So I just wanted to point that out. The G rune is actually an X shape, not the kind of upwards F-y shape that most people associate with the G rune for Gandalf. So, Gebo. Why do you hate me? The first meaning of Gifu, or Gefu? Gebo. So many different ways to pronounce this rune. Is a gift. This rune is very connected to the rune right after it, which is Wunjo, joy, and so many people associate them as very similar, but they're actually quite different. With this, this gift is a certain kind of gift. It has a lot to do with generosity. Gift giving was very important to the Norse people. They would give gifts all the time. Whenever, I mean, and you can see this very often with, well, I know I do this, and it might have something to do with my Germanic heritage. I just find things and like to give them to people. But they believed in this idea of generosity and of balance, and that the idea of what goes around comes around. So if you are generous and you give gifts to people, that same idea is going to come back to you in life. And they also believed in this idea of being generous to everyone, that people who have wealth and the means to give gifts to others should be grateful for it and should give gifts to those people that don't have the means to do so, so that they do have the means to do so for the people that are below them, and so on and so forth. And it kind of just goes down the social ladder. And so this rune also has a lot to do with the idea of civilization, this idea of being kind to your fellow man. It also has the same idea of being a good host or hostess, always letting people, obviously doesn't apply entirely to this period of time, but pretty much they would let anybody into their homes and kind of warm them up by the fire. Obviously, in the environment where these folks were from, this could mean the difference between someone living or dying. So, and also, you know, obviously if someone let you into their house, they wouldn't like slit your throat and steal your big screen TV. But they also didn't have big screen TVs. So it was this idea of being a good host. And then we also, with this idea of gift, we have the idea of gift giving, and one of the biggest gift giving events are weddings. And the reason why we have the reception afterwards is that's when people give gifts to the bride and groom to help them get started out. The bride and groom also give gifts to the members that attend the wedding in order to remember it. And the two families come together and plan this humongous wedding feast, which is a gift to everybody, the entire community. So there's just gift giving all around. And originally this idea of preparing this wedding feast was what an engagement was for. Is that once you decided to marry someone, then the two families had your engagement period to get ready for this. Because it's a lot of money, it's a lot of resources, and it just takes some time to put together. As anybody who's planned a wedding will very well know. And so with this we also have the idea of the wedding partnership itself. It's not the wedding bed. It has nothing to do with the sexual energy of a marriage, but it has to do with the wedding itself, the two becoming a partnership. And thus you get that X. You get those two elements becoming one. And the old adage of a wedding is, in a marriage, is the only time where you get the mathematical equation of 1 + 1 = 1. And so with that idea of the wedding, you have this idea of mutual support of these two people kind of balancing each other. Again, we come back to this idea of balance, that you don't give too much, you don't take too much, it's just here or there. And the X is a very balanced thing. You get the two leaning on each other, supporting each other. And so with this, it's not just weddings, it's also any platonic partnerships. So that's business partners, best friends, pretty much anything that involves two people working very closely together. You'll notice I keep instinctively making the X sign for Gebo. And you'll see that this is one of those runes that is really rooted into our culture even now. And so with this idea of the platonic partnerships, we also get it being this idea of economics. And this also goes into the civilization bent on it, as well as this idea of generosity and balance. You've got trade, which is giving somebody one thing in order to receive something else. So with this gift giving and this balance, you always have this gift giving creating this idea of something returning to you, which goes around with their thought process of what goes around comes around. And so there's this big idea of exchange. Exchange is a huge word for Gebo. It's one of those key words, kind of like gift and generosity. And so there's the different kinds of exchanges. There's the exchange of goods, which is the economic, the exchange of oaths. And back in the days with Vikings, who would have used this system of writing, they had oath rings. And when you would give an oath of fealty to a lord or king, he would then give you a ring. And this gift was, in a sort of way, he was giving this gift, this wealth, in order to essentially trade for your support. He gave you something, and now you owe him your support. This exchange of oaths you could also see in marriage ceremonies. This idea of the man giving the woman a ring, because originally it was just the man giving the woman the ring and sort of buying her, and then she would become part of his family, which you see in the female taking of the male man. That tradition has changed since that period of time, and now both men and women, they exchange rings. Notice the X again. They exchange rings, so it's a little bit more of an even partnership than it once was. Although both men and women in a marriage do have different things that they need to do to support the household, and so it's a balance there.
Well, since you've been talking about weddings, there's something interesting I learned about that in very traditional wedding ceremonies. They would actually hold both hands crossed over.
Yeah.
So you also have the...
Yeah, there you go, the idea of the hand fasting, where you would put the hands one over another, and again, that makes an X. And the various people at the wedding would tie those hands together to represent the new union. And they would tie them together with the various scraps of fabric and ribbons and things, and usually these were scraps from the female relatives that they would gather together in order to tie. So it would be pieces of their lives, in a sense. Not so much with modern hand fastings. Usually they get nice pretty ribbons for that. And so with this idea of the exchange is also this exchange of loyalties. You see, obviously, it's most pronounced in weddings, where you see the woman going from her family to her new husband's family. And so then you have, one of the strong kind of themes of all of this is that in giving a gift, you kind of get, you create this debt from the person you're giving the gift to. It's a good kind of debt. Most people hear debt and they get freaked out. But it's kind of like paying it forward. You give them something and then they give it on and things like that. With this, we also get the more amorphous idea of there's a price for every action. And this brings the rune into more of a spiritual sense, so that everything we do creates a ripple out into the world. And that's why you'll see a lot of pagans be very thankful for the things that they have. They say thank you. That's why people used to do sacrifices. It was very much giving a gift to the gods, not a sacrifice, but giving them a gift in order to gain their loyalty, much as a lord would give a ring to a knight in order to help him. And there's also this idea of when you do magic work, what you're doing is you're using the energy of the universe. And so you have to give something back. And that's why many people do give offerings during ritual. Or if somebody goes out and takes from a plant in order to use the plant in a spell, they'll leave an offering for that plant as a way of saying thank you. So there's this idea of this cycle of gift giving. You give, like the plant or the god will give something to you, and thus you need to give them a gift, or you give them a gift in order for them to give you a gift. There is this balance inherent in this gift giving. And also on an ecological note, being that we're very pagans, this also is the rune of recycling. So you'll notice that we were talking about this whole giving and receiving, this going around, coming around. So that also means that we need to be ecologically sound. We need to keep this cycle in mind. This idea that we have to give to the earth in order to receive from it, which means that we need to put good things in to take things out. We can't just keep taking and taking and taking without giving back. Just as we shouldn't also keep giving and giving and giving without taking, because that's just going to end us up in the poorhouse. So there is this idea of the balance. You don't give too much, because if you keep if you keep giving to the gods and you don't actually take anything from them, then, what's the point? Or if you don't, you get it. What goes around comes around. You need to give in order to take. You need to take in order to give. And then, last, we've got gift as the skill or ability. Now, this one, I felt kind of dumb when I realized it, because I went through all of this other stuff that I just talked about with you guys, and then at the end, I was reading one book and they kind of mentioned, oh, by the way, it's also a talent, and I'm just like, really? That's something that I just went right over my head this entire time? How many books did I have to go through to get to this? 6 books. 6 books I went through before I actually read that. Gift, skill, or ability. Really? So yeah. And so also with that skill or ability comes in this idea of the cycle, which I'm in love with tonight. So in order to have this gift, you need to use it. And by using it, you create something to share with everybody else. For example, an artist. A gifted artist will create artwork and then put it out into the world, and people will buy it and enjoy it, and will give that person money in order to buy food and sustenance and other things like that, which is kind of also a little bit of a plug to go to Indiegogo and give us some money to support this program. Because what goes around comes around. let's help you. So yeah, so people with skill or ability share that skill or ability and are given the skills and abilities of other people. And obviously you see that in everyday life. Whatever you do, someone comes to you and uses your skills and abilities and gives you money for it. And then you use that money to go out and buy the services of people that you need their gifts. Like, for example, you might be a plumber. And you go out and you fix people's homes all day and you make sure that their toilets don't explode and their sinks run efficiently and they have hot and cold running water. And then you get home and you realize that your refrigerator doesn't work and you need an electrician. So you need to call that person, and so you both have skills. Very different, very valid skills, and you help each other out. With money. And there's that economic element to Gebo.
So Gebo is definitely a rune of give and take. Then,
give and take. It does have an emphasis on the giving, but it also has this idea of take. I mean, it's more like you give in order to receive.
Oh.
I mean, there's a very strong emphasis on the giving, because and that's also how the Norse would show their influence, and that's how you would gain honor, is if you had all of this influence, you would share it with others. And the more generous you were, the higher in status you'd be.
So in other words, you have to give to receive.
Yes. And so
makes sense.
yeah. And then obviously by garnering all this goodwill among all these people that you're giving all these gifts to, they're obviously, more inclined to help you out in times of war. If you have like a lot of land and you're always sharing your food with them, they'll be more inclined to come over and help you harvest it, because that's a pain. A good kind of pain, but a pain nonetheless. Another thing I would like to mention is this idea of Gebo that has come down to us all the way to the present day, which many people is just infused in regular life and nobody notices it. The little XOs that you write at the end of letters? The X that stands for the kiss is Gebo. There you go. That's a little fun thing. Another place where it shows up is, you'll notice that on alcohol, there'll be three, like in the moonshine, in like the cartoons and stuff like that, there'll be the three little X's. And the reason people would put those three little X's on there is to ward away poisons, surprisingly. So the 3X is in order to prevent poisoning. And that's actually the healing property of Gebo, is to prevent toxic poisoning. I think it's a little weird. I don't really see the connection, but that's what it is. And with that, I'm going to go on to the associations unless anybody has anything to add. Nope? Okay, so on to the associations we got. Alright, so the gods and goddesses associated with Gebo is the Vanir, which are the giants and the folks who are around before the Aesir, and the Aesir is the people who are headed by Odin, those guys. And surprisingly, it's actually associated with Odin as well. Gebo does have a lot of things in common with the rune answers, this idea of getting a gift from God, as opposed to speaking with a god. And also the idea that Odin sacrificed himself to receive the runes. He gave himself to himself. So this idea of gift giving not only to a god, I mean, he was obviously giving of himself to himself as the god, but also then he used that to receive the runes. So this idea of you have to give a lot to receive a lot. And many people who work with Odin find that Odin does put his whole self into things. As you can see very clearly with the fact that he speared himself with his own spear onto a tree for 9 days. That's kind of a little bit of a sacrifice there, giving a little bit, just a little. And so he kind of expects the same from the people who are practicing runes. He expects that they put their whole self into it. And if they don't, he just doesn't bother. So there. for the polarity of it. Gebo is actually one of the only runes, and the only one that I've come to so far, that is both male and female. There you go. It's polarity. I had no idea the way to make this an adjective.
Polaritastic.
Polaritastic. Its polarity is both. It's a hermaphrodite. There you have it. The number associated with Gebo is the number 7. So as you can see, Gebo is also a very fantastic rune for luck. And the number 7 is a clear indicator of that. Its color association is dark blue, which is the same color association, if you remember, from Answer. And so this has this idea of spirituality. It's very calming, sensitive, has to do with truth, healing, hope, friendship. So this is a very community-based rune. Healing is against the toxic poisoning, and the astrological correspondence is Pisces. Yeah. So, you know, Pisces really love to give gifts. That might be it. It's either because I'm German or I'm a Pisces that I like to give people gifts.
I didn't know Pisces were into gift giving.
Are you kidding me? They are all about gift giving. I mean, when they're not like horribly, horribly depressed and bemoaning their existence, they love giving things.
But like the Pisces symbol is the 2 fish.
Yeah.
So that reminds me a little bit of yin and yang, especially if you look at Chinese symbology.
Yeah, that's more Gemini. Gemini has that yin and yang thing going.
Yeah. Not so much. I'm thinking about the koi and everything else.
Yeah.
Japanese mythology.
Yeah. When the Pisces isn't, you know, being wishy-washy and indecisive, that's what the fish going in opposite directions is, the indecisiveness.
Oh,
they're always going in 2 different directions at the same time.
Yeah, the fighting ideas.
It's not really like it's.
Must get the Shinto mythology out of
There's no 3-dimensionality to that. It's just 2.
Fighting against the current.
Well, one of them is.
Yeah.
So yeah, when they're not being horribly depressed and stuck in their own little dream world, they love giving people things. Very emotional, very crazy.
I can see that. Well, water is the element of emotions.
Yes, it is. Tarot cards associated with Gebo is the Lovers. You'll notice that many of these associations have a lot to do with this romantic side of Gebo. I don't know why. I would have put it more along the lines of the cultural stuff.
And that whole marriage thing, though.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that, like, if you boil it down to, like, the lowest common denominator, people always think of love. I mean, it's evident. So, obviously, if love is anywhere in here, and it's the most platonic of loves. It's this partnership in love. It's not, you know, the physical part of it.
Back to the give and take there.
Yeah. And again, it's this idea of the 2 genders, you know. Gebo. So yeah, the tarot card associated with it is the Lovers, which is, its upright meaning is union, choice, marriage, love, the union of opposites, balance. Its reversed is really sad. Another one that people sometimes associate with Gebo is the Sun, which is material happiness, happy marriage or relationship. So it's kind of like the happy, fluffy bunny Gebo. I actually like the Lovers a little bit more for that one. Oh wow. A reversed for the Sun is actually annoyance.
The Sun?
For the Sun type card, yeah. Annoyance.
That's not unsurprising to me.
Yep. The element for Gebo is air.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
That surprises me.
That surprises you?
I was expecting water.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I think it has more to do with this because water has a lot of darkness to it. Gebo's a little bit brighter than that.
Okay. Well, because if you're dealing with emotions, water is gonna. If you get murky, there you go.
It can get kind of murky. Air is a little bit more flighty. Like, I mean, just the way that I'm talking about Gebo tonight, just the emotionality of Gebo, it's a little bit just like woo. Obviously, I'm a little into the Gebo. Because it's really spunky, it's really going, it's got the, again with the economics, business is related to air.
When I dabbled in rune readings, I actually used the rather Christian leaning book that we complain about every once in a while. Yes.
Ralph.
And
interesting.
But he described the Gebo as its overall general meaning was partnership.
Yeah.
And every time I showed up in a reading I gave for somebody, it was inevitably business related.
Yeah.
So, not anything else for me though, just always business related.
It's usually business or marriage, and actually, if we can get into a little bit of jive about marriage, marriage is very early on in its institution by the Catholic Church. An economic, it had strictly economic reasons. The reason...
It's kind of funny because it's still looked at that in modern government.
It is. Well, it's very important economically. It's always been tied to economics. It has no other reason.
Legally, it's a handshake agreement. That's how the law looks at it. It's a handshake agreement. Mm-hmm. Hence
well, I suppose if you're getting like a deity involved, it kind of needs to be a handshake agreement.
Yep.
Deity with several deities.
Yeah.
But yeah, this idea of marriage as an economic thing in the very early feudal systems of it, it made sure that a man and a woman would be there to work on the land, because obviously the lowest common denominator you need to work land is two people. One person to be out in the field doing the work, one person to be in the home creating the things to sustain the guy out in the field doing the work. Also, in order to create... it's a minimum of two people to work land. If you've ever worked land, it's a pain in the tuchus. And it does require two people. Or else you will die. Both figuratively and literally.
Oh.
You will go hungry and just waste away into nothingness.
More literally often than not. Yep.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then you won't be able to take care of your fields and your animals, and everything just goes off. And so it was the lowest common denominator. Not only that, but it needed to be between a man and a woman. No offense to the gays, but the early Catholic Church needed it to be between a man and a woman because they could reproduce. Again, with the X here.
Did it also have to be approved by the feudal lord?
It might have.
Because if that's an economic thing...
Yeah. I'm not 100% up on my feudal marriage law.
Yeah, neither am I.
All I know is that it needed to be between a man and a woman because then they could reproduce and obviously create more people to work the land.
And multiply.
Very important in an economic system that your economic pawns created more economic pawns. Changed. In order to make more money, you need to make more people. Mm-hmm. It wasn't meant as a slight against people who preferred their own gender. It was just, a thing to make more babies. And then as we moved out of the feudal and into this idea of the family being the smallest economical, there's a word here, building block, denominator, there you go. The lowest common economical denominator would be the family, and this is when we start seeing a prevalent middle class. So marriage is very much socioeconomically strategic. I'm sorry for tripping over my words today. Because, especially in the civilized countries, you see the idea of the dowry. And so, and this is heavily tied into virginity, which I've been doing a lot of research on recently. Don't get me started. Amazingly interesting stuff. Definitely recommend looking into it for any of the ladies out there because it definitely will give you some, girl power if you look into it. But so this idea of virginity was a social economic pull. Women would remain virgins in order to ensure that the person that they married would have proof of paternity because, obviously that's kind of hard to, figure out as opposed to proving who your mom is. That's pretty easy. And so virginity was proof positive paternity. And so a woman who was a virgin was economically better equipped to get a husband. And even in some cases, it was kind of like a BA is now. If you don't have it, you're not getting a job or a husband. You need it, or else you're going to not do very well. No offense to people not getting degrees. I'm not
Exceptions.
It'll be fine. As opposed to back in the day, if you weren't a virgin, you were definitely not going to do well, unless your dad was really well off, in which case you'd be fine.
Or a prostitute.
Or a prostitute. That's really sad. Thank you for that.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. True.
So basically, this idea, and so because everybody was a virgin, you needed to sweeten the deal somehow, and that was obviously through a dowry. And so guys would get the girl with the best dowry that they could get within their social standing. And so then marriage became a power play. And then of course we also know that in, the higher up circles, you see obviously the princes and the princesses marrying for strategic reasons. Again, I'm making the X with my fingers. Obviously it's a very important thing that we always see. And that's the element air. I'm everywhere today, huh? Alright, the planetary rulers. I'll let you guess, Alfred. What do you think the planetary ruler is?
Oh, goodness.
Mister, you're going to do an astrology study group every
Yeah, but I'm not good
Tuesday.
at rune correspondences, though. That's the thing.
Well,
if I had to take a wild guess, though...
Yeah, just based on what we've been chatting about.
I feel like it might be Venus.
Exactly
Yeah.
so. It's Venus. Good job. And check in on the astrology study group.
Not as bad as I thought it was. How about that?
There you go. And so this is the idea of harmony. It's the planet of pleasure and luxury. The tree associated with this rune is the elm, which I don't understand why. All it does is make sure that you don't get hit by lightning. And if you carry it, it will help you find your love.
Well,
again, it has this love correspondence that I don't understand why there's no commerce in here. I mean, I'm sure there's a tree of commerce, right? I don't know what it is. Do you guys know what it is? What is the tree of commerce? I don't know. Does anybody know?
that sounds like the tree of commerce, like in this grove. You have the tree of commerce, the tree of love, the tree of bad ideas. All these
tree of bad ideas. That sounds awful. And the plant associated with Gebo is heartsease, also known as the pansy. It has so many folk names, it's not even funny.
I've only known it as the pansy.
If you would like me to, I've known it as like 3 different names when I was growing up too.
Really?
Yeah, I knew it as heartsease and pansy and Johnny Jump Up. It's a very Irish.
Oh, that yes. Okay.
Yep, Johnny Jump Up.
Yeah.
It's also called. I just want to share this because there are so many folk names, and keep this in mind because some of them might show up in our Facebook updates.
Huh?
Check it. Make notes. Bird's Eye, Bonewort, Bouncing Bet, Garden Violet, Heart's Ease, Horse Violet, Johnny Jumper, Johnny Jump Up, Kiss Me at the Garden Gate. That's a really long one.
That's a really long one.
I can see why that one doesn't get used anymore. Little Stepmother, Love Idol, Love and Idleness, Love Lies Bleeding. That's sad.
Oh my.
Loving Idol, Meet Me in the Entry, Stepmother, and Tittle My Fancy.
Tickle my fancy. That's what it's called for now. Would you like a bouquet of tickle my fancies?
That would be a lot. A bouquet of them would be a lot.
Hilarious.
Can you imagine an entire bouquet of tickle my fancy? And as you can clearly tell by some of the various names that pansies have,
all of which are entertaining.
Yeah. The pansy draws in love. It's used in love divinations, and you can plant them in the shape of the heart to create love. That's just silly. See, you don't need a bouquet of Tittle My Fancies, you need a heart-shaped garden of Tittle My Fancies.
That's a lot.
That's a little bit less than a bouquet of them.
If you're having a heart-shaped garden?
Not a whole garden, a little heart-shaped, like a fairy ring, but a heart-shaped one of Tittle My Fancies.
Yes, Netster said she's never calling that a pansy again and referring to it as Tittle My Fancy.
Yeah, I might start calling it Kiss Me at the Garden Gate. I like
That's just really loud. Oh, no, not long. I mean,
loud? I am loud.
It's really loud.
But yeah, there's actually a couple that kind of hint at affairs
Yeah,
Kiss me at the garden gate and meet me in the entry? Yeah. I mean, you could either be going out or, you know, making sure your boyfriend at the house doesn't, you know, notice it.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Actually, ironically, despite the you know, overtones of affair in the names, a woman whose sailor love goes to sea can ensure he thinks of her by burying sea sand in the pansy bed and watering the flowers before sunrise. That seems a little extreme.
It does.
It seems like a lot of work. I suppose if you really like your sailor.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're really...
So yeah, those are the plants. Lad's love. Does anybody know what lad's love is? Because I thought it was the pansy, but it doesn't say pansy. Lad's love. I'm going to look it up. I apologize for anybody watching this after the fact that needs to watch me look up lad's love.
I've never...
By the way,
it's probably
Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs, one of my favorite books. It's very good. And you can look up you can cross-reference them by folk name. So that's what I'm going to be doing right now, is cross-referencing.
And toxicity, I've noticed as well.
Toxicity, yes.
Oh, Nestor thinks it's wormwood.
Wormwood, that would be interesting. I'm going to look it up, Nestor, but I will check out wormwood if I cannot find it. Actually, it's southernwood. I don't know anything about southernwood.
Is southernwood also known as wormwood?
I don't know. Well, obviously not. It would have told me wormwood, and I would have gone there and said it would have said southernwood. Tea. Got tea. I think I went too fast. I think I went too far.
We all know what wormwood's used for.
Southernwood. Oh goodness. It has a lot of also awful folk names. Boy's love, lad's love, maid's ruin, and old man. I'm really not liking this maid's ruin thing. I'm a little worried.
Old man.
Oh, its powers are love, lust, and protection. It's used in love spells, placed beneath the bed to rouse lust. Okay, I refuse to allow this plant to be here.
I love how it's called old man, though. That's
and maid's ruin.
That's creepy.
That's a little creepy.
Yeah.
Burned as incense, it guards against trouble of all kinds.
Where does that come from?
What?
Like if it's gonna do for all lust, but if you burn it as incense, protects
I suppose if you have the plant underneath your bed, obviously it's going to incur lust. But if you set it on fire, you'll keep that shit away. I guess. So I'm going to say that southernwood or lad's love as its plant is horse pucky, and we're just going to go with what? Some of these things are very silly.
I've heard horse hockey, but not horse pucky.
Horse pucky? It means poop.
Yes, I know it does. So doesn't buffalo bagels. Have you heard that?
Oh no, that's awful. So yeah, lad's love is horse pucky, but tickle my fancy is legit. There you go. And that's my word on that.
Old man and tickle my fancy. Old man tickle my fancy.
I don't want any old man tickling my fancy. And that was inappropriate.
Well, actually, southernwood is actually a form of wormwood, apparently.
Form of wormwood.
That's what Netster is saying.
Okay.
I don't know, but we all know.
It says it's poisonous. Don't eat it.
Yeah, but we all know wormwood is good for. Absinthe.
Well, you know what? You don't know anything about what wormwood's good for, don't you? Underage.
I am underage, but...
So you have no idea.
I read Victorian novels.
Okay, so the difference in the scientific name, if we want to get all sciencey here, southernwood is Artemisia arboretanum. Sorry, I'm very awful with my Latin. Never was very good at the Romance language.
Yeah.
Artemisia arboretanum. And wormwood is Artemisia absinthium. So they're within the same genus. Not the same species.
Yeah.
No, slightly different. Oh goodness. Actually, wormwood is called old woman, crown for a king, madderwort, and wormwort.
Oh, so they must be at least related on the folk level.
On the folk level, wormwood has more to do with psychic powers, protection, love, and calling spirits, as opposed to southernwood, which is more of love, lust, and protection. So they have the protection in common.
Huh. But if you call it one's old woman, one's old man, you know.
That's true.
Old woman being one, old man being southern.
Both of them get rid of snakes. Southernwood more about snakes, and wormwood more about sea serpents. More water related. Which is ironic, because southernwood's more associated with air, and wormwood is associated with the element of fire. I don't know why I would get rid of sea serpents if it's related to fire and Mars. Its gender is masculine, but its deities are Artemis? That's just weird.
Well, Artemis is a warrior, kind of.
I know she's a warrior, but... Oh, that's fantastic.
Huh?
According to folklore, wormwood, if you eat it, it's supposed to counter-effect the effects of poisoning. So you eat something poisonous in order to get rid of poison. That's smart.
That's very extreme when you hear the phrase, hair of the dog that bit you.
I guess so.
Actually, in this case, hair of the dragon that bit you.
Actually, I'm going to go and say that wormwood actually has a lot more to do with Gebo. Thank you, Nestor. Than its cousin, southernwood. Because it has this idea of getting rid of the poison. Yeah. Which is something that Gebo is supposed to do. So there you go. Good call, Master. It's apparently highly addictive.
Absinthe.
Yeah. It's a highly addictive and dangerous liqueur.
Friend of mine thought her skin was melting when she had real absinthe.
All right.
Yeah. Stay away.
Oh, goodness. Oh, wow, it protects vehicles from accidents on treacherous roads. Good to know.
Drive on the Autobahn with that stuff.
I guess so. Alright, so we will be moving on to the gem associations, which are all horse hockey. Except maybe jade. All of them have to do with love. The opal, silica and water. It has angelic connections, which I suppose Ralph Blum would approve of this stone. It's often used for clearing emotions to create more positive vibrations. It's good at balancing chakras. So I suppose it has this idea of, you know, balance, and it's called the Stone of the Gods. Okay, I take it back. Opal looks like it passes. Emerald is for luck. It's associated with Venus, love, psychic abilities. It sounds like emerald and wormwood have a lot in common.
Yay, evidence.
Oh, and the emerald can bridge a gap between two people. Emerald vibrates with love. So I guess it would have this idea of the Gebo. Less horse hockey than I originally thought.
Emerald is supposed to be green, right?
Yes, it's a very...
Corresponds to the heart chakra as well.
Yeah. It's the stone of prophecy. Yeah.
Fancy that.
Yeah. It's a tranquilizer for a troubled mind.
Look.
Very expensive.
My
mother's favorite stone. And then you have jade, which is a powerful symbol used to draw love. It guards against accidents and misfortune. Which is nice, so it has this association with luck. And that's the whole deal. We spent a lot of time talking about plants tonight. So yeah, anybody have any comments, questions, concerns, or fun stuff they'd like to share with us? And even if you're not catching this live and you would like to share some stuff, share it in the comments section, or post a response video. We'd love to see it. We'd love to share it. Love talking about runes. Is that it? Anybody? Nothing? Nothing? Well, thank you very much for being here tonight, Nestor. And sharing with us the wisdom of the wormwood. So yeah, there you go. Gifts and stuff. And Cunningham's Encyclopedia is rocking. So, I believe that's it for tonight. Tomorrow we have WOWM-Rune, and that will be
next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. Tomorrow is Alfred. Tomorrow's Alfred, and he's going to talk about astrology. So you can ask him all these questions about Venus. What are you guys talking about tomorrow?
General introduction. Going to go over some symbology. Might pop into the first horoscope symbol. Yeah, sun sign rather.
Oh, so you're going to talk about Aries?
Yeah, Aries is first. Yeah.
Oh yeah. He thinks he's special because he's an Aries.
No. I do know one person who thinks he's special because he's an Aries, but if I say it on camera, I will get slapped.
Anyways, so Alfred tomorrow with his astrology, and I will see you next week with WOWM-Rune, which is the last rune in the first 8. That means we're 1/3 of the way through next week. Can you believe it?
No.
And that'll be the last of Freyr's 8. And I don't remember, I think it's Hoggle's 8, because, yeah, Hoggle's 8 is coming up the week after next week. Good times.
And they're 24, correct? Entirely? Or no, excuse me, they're only 16.
No, 16 is the younger Futhark?
Oh.
We're doing the, we're doing the elder Futhark.
How many?
24 plus weird.
So yeah,
room.
3 group
so
debate
25.
plus weird, yeah.
Yeah. And don't start opening on the weird yet. We're not there. And I'm starting to get some disdain for it, so you guys might have fun.
Oh no.
I've been reading too much of the actual historical context for these things, and I'm beginning to get mimsy about weird.
What a word.
Mimsy.
Nestor will be here next week.
Nestor, yay! Always great to have you. More people should show up. Runes are fun. And we talk about silly things. And apparently I get that accent. That's my Gebo accent.
Oh Lord.
Alright, so we're done. Turn it off.